Well, hello and welcome to Hammer Environmental. My name is Greg Hammer. I spent 30 years working for the federal government as a soil scientist and wetland specialist, and now I want to take that experience that I had with the federal government and put it to work for you. Today, I am going to talk about something that if you have been around wetlands or you are familiar with wetland laws, I'm going to tell you some things today that I think are going to be very surprising to you, and it might even blow your mind. I am going to talk today about what's called a manipulated wetland. And I'm going to let you know what it is, who gets it, and what happens when there is problems. So first of all, what is a manipulated wetland? So a manipulated wetland is a area that meets the criteria of a wetland, but there are manipulations that have occurred, and it is only applicable to individuals who are participating with USDA, and under the Food Security Act, they get a classification of manipulated wetlands. So here's some examples. A pond in a wetland is a manipulated wetland. A pile of spoil or a pile of stumps in a wetland would be a manipulated wetland. An area where there was a ditch that was dug through a wooded wetland would be called a manipulated wetland. Even though it may have taken an entire hydrology away from the area, as long as production of an ag commodity was not intended and was not made possible, that area would be called a manipulated wetland. A wetland that was worked so that an orchard could be planted, or a vineyard could be planted, or a spring development, or even an ag waste facility in a wetland, which is it's a terrible idea. But if that happened in a wetland, it would be called a manipulated wetland. That is not a violation. Any of those things that I just said, they are not violations of the Food Security Act. So to many, I do believe that that's going to be new news, surprising news, and maybe even shocking, because most people who are familiar with wetland laws are familiar with the Clean Water Act. Many of the things that I just talked about that are manipulated wetlands are violations of the Clean Water Act. And here's the crazy part. So, for example, NRCS in their manual encourages NRCS employees to work with farmers to make plans in these particular situations. They help them in planning WX, or manipulated wetlands. And if there was an area, so let's say, for example, there was an area that there was spoil that was placed in a wetland, or the hydrology was altered of a wooded area and it no longer met the wetland criteria. Well, that's not a Food Security Act violation. That is a Clean Water Act violation. But by the Farm Bill in Section 1619, the agency staff, even if they know that there is a violation of another federal law, they are restricted from sharing that information because that is considered private information and is not public, and they are not allowed to share that information. So there would be no reporting to the other agencies if they saw a violation of their laws. So to me, that's pretty surprising and pretty shocking. So now, if you're in the ag industry, so you can get the green light from one federal agency that says, yeah, you're good to go. Yeah, you can do this. But just remember, it's still your responsibility to be in compliance with the other laws. That's what you get in a little letter. You get a little sentence in a very busy business like letter that says, hey, it's still your job. You got to keep track of these things. But we're not going to tell the other agencies if you do something wrong. So, what's the takeaway from all of this? Well, first of all, we have two federal wetland laws, the Clean Water Act and the Food Security Act. And those two laws at times are in conflict with each other. They are not a one-to-one relationship. There are there are things that are allowed in one law, the Food Security Act, that are violations of the other federal law, the Clean Water Act. That's conflict. And conflict creates confusion. And when there's confusion, what we really need is clarity. And that's where we come in. So if you're ever in a situation where manipulated wetlands are at play, and there's question marks in your head, give us a call. We'll be glad to help you out. Well, hope you have a good rest of your day. Take care.